Es geht durch die Welt ein Geflüster. Arbeiter, hörst du es nicht? Das sind die Stimmen der Kriegsminister. Arbeiter, hörst du sie nicht? Es flüstern die Kohle- und Stahlproduzenten. Es flüstert die chemische Kriegsproduktion. Es flüstert von allen Kontinenten. Mobilmachung gegen die Sowjetunion. Arbeiter, Bauern, nehmt die Gewehre zur Hand. Zerschlag die faschistischen Räuberheere.
So we generally use the term class in our everyday speech about certain things, but it isn't always exactly clear what we mean when we use the term. Sometimes in our vernacular, for example, it can mean anything from our income level to our job to many other things about us. But as the fundamental basis for the history of all existing society, as it is under Marxism, it is absolutely essential for us to not only know exactly what class is, but also to give a proper account of how it functions within society on a more general level. As such, in this video I'm going to explain what the Marxist account and description of class is, and then expand upon the dynamics of class relationships within society. Thus, class at its most basic is the relationship one has to the means of production, and on a more broader systemic level, class is the multiple ways in which production is arranged and distributed within a particular society. To give a very contemporary example, within capitalism, the arrangements of production are essentially distributed into two functional positions within the capitalist hierarchy: those who work the machines and those who own the machines. At, say, McDonald's, for example, the cooks will produce the primary commodities of the business, namely the food, using the forces of production within the restaurant, such as fryers, stoves, and the like. As such, the relation of the cook to the forces of production is that they work them, while not owning them. The owner of the store, however, never works the machine in each store generally, yet owns them. As such, the relationship to the forces of production is one of owning them while not working them. These two distinct ways of relating to the productive process give insight to the very fundamental class dynamic present under capitalism, that is, the interrelationship between those who own production, that is, the capitalists, and those who work production, that is, the proletarians. This example and understanding of class on the Marxist account gives us several very essential insights into the nature and dynamics of class within a society. First, class does not describe something inherent about an activity or atomized individual. Rather, class is described through its social and relational character, as opposed to the general argument put forth by bourgeois and capitalist economists and historians, who view production as just a series of mostly voluntary decisions made by individuals who happen to end up collaborating. The Marxist understanding of class suggests and proves that production is a very social process, and this is made most clear when you look at a factory and lines of production wherein you have hundreds or even thousands of people working on a single set of products rather than very isolated individuals making things for the market. Second, as a result of the social character of class in society, classes do not exist as isolated constructions. That is to say, classes in each historical period of history exist only in relationship to the other classes of that period who participate either directly or indirectly in production. To explain this further, I'll return to the example of the cook and capitalist within McDonald's. Given a capitalist relation of property, the position of a proletarian will only make sense in conjunction and relationship to the position of a capitalist, since somebody within capitalism needs to own production. And on the other hand, the position of the capitalist only makes sense in conjunction and combined with the position of the proletarian, since somebody within capitalism will need to inject their labor into production in order to make commodities. However, the Marxist understanding of class goes much further than simply defining it in terms of social relations to production and the social character of class. For Marxism, the mere experience and existence of economic classes implies a certain political dynamic which exists between classes to make one class the class of oppressors and the other classes the classes of the oppressed, that is, the dynamic of exploitation. Exploitation is a primarily Marxist concept which is best defined as a social relation within which one class appropriates a portion of the productive yield of another class, thus preventing the latter class from receiving the full value of its labor. But this seems very abstract, so I'll give a few examples both under feudalism and under capitalism. Under feudalism, one of the prime social relations which defined the economy was that between the feudal lords and the peasantry. The most prominent form in which this social relation took place was a process by which the feudal lord would provide mandatory protection and land for the peasants, who would work the land, giving the lord a generally substantial cut of the yield every season. In this situation, the lord would appropriate a very large portion of what was produced by the labor of the peasant, thereby making the relationship between the peasant and the lord an exploitive one. In a more contemporary example, in the case of the cook in capitals at McDonald's again, the cook will produce food in exchange for money, however, only receives a small portion of the total value they produce through the day, therefore being exploited by the capitalist. This understanding of exploitation as a necessary social condition and consequence of classes in society produces several political implications which are essential to understanding class on a more general level. First, class cannot be equated with living conditions, income level, or the like necessarily. Although one's class can generally predict what their living conditions will look like, there's not a mechanical or deterministic relationship between the two. That is to say, you can still be a capitalist and earn a substantial amount of money. You see something similar to this when you compare the proletariat in the first world, like the United States or UK, and compare that with the living standards and payment to proletarians in the third world, which make substantially less money. Second, and finally, and far more importantly, at a very basic and fundamental level, the interests of classes who are in exploitive social relations with one another, such as that between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, are fundamentally incompatible with one another. This not only explains the inevitable conflict and revolutionary struggle between classes historically, but also explains the bloody conflict between workers and capitalists which exists within and even defines capitalistic society. That is to say, due to the fact that there is a relationship of exploitation, the interests of capitalists and workers and other dialectically opposed classes, that means that their interests are necessarily going to be at odds with one another. So what is in the best interest of the worker is never going to be what is in the best interest of the capitalist, except in very limited situations. Because the capitalists, within the context of capitalism, for example, want to extract the most surplus labor and value from the worker, whereas the worker wants the capitalist to not extract that much labor at all, if at all, because most workers would rather receive the full value of their labor rather than just a portion. So that's a very general understanding of what Marxists mean on a definitional level of what class is. In future videos, I'll go into more what the dynamic of class struggle and class reformation, class conflicts, that sort of thing, will look like within the historical context of capitalism in the real world.